Oh, I have to. There we go. I'm also recording this. Is that okay with everybody?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us and for everybody tuning in. I'm really happy to announce another one of our QChat series. This one is called QTPOC, Queer and Trans People of Color and Mental Health. Today we're going to be discussing a little bit of the intersectionality of being LGBTQ and also being a person of color, the barriers, family dynamics, and how it affects mental health. So today we're really happy to, I'm going to introduce just a very small introduction with our speakers. Well, let me introduce myself. My name is Adrian Asbin. I'm the project coordinator. My pronouns are he, him. We also have Erica Parpan, who's from Fighting Back Partnership. She is also with me in the Solano County Innovations Project. And then now I introduce our speakers for this topic. We have Mara Sammartino. She's a licensed clinician, social worker, has been dedicated to working with the Latinx community in mental health field for the last 12 years in Solano County. I have Normandy Gamboa, is a first-generation Filipino-American immigrant and an 18-year-old Bay Area resident. He's spent his first half of his life in the Philippines and the second half in the United States. And then I have Vince Mendoza, who's a queer Chicano, personal trainer, and a future graduate student. So thank you very much. And now I want to pass it to Erica to kind of introduce the project itself and what we're trying to do with the project.
Sure. So Solano County Behavioral Health Department partnered with UC Davis Center for Reducing Health Disparities, and they launched this project known as Solano County Innovations Cultural Transformation Model. That's a long name, so we just call it Solano Innovations. So the project's goal is to improve access and utilization of mental health services among the Latino community, which is coordinated by Zoila at Rio Vista Care, the Filipino-American community, which I coordinate through Fighting Back Partnership, and then the LGBTQ plus community, which Adrian coordinates at Solano Pride Center. Our goals are to reduce stigma of mental health, promote wellness and culture, and help identify those in need of services. So as a collaborative, myself, Adrian, and Zoila, we coordinate QTPOC, Queer Trans People of Color, creating a space specifically for people of color that identify as LGBTQ plus spectrum to help people of color safely discuss issues, as we will be doing soon, that affect them and the impact it has on their wellness. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Erica. So why don't I just a quick, I want to go around and, have everybody kind of, reintroduce themselves a little bit and maybe give us a little bit more background on their work, school, and profession. So we can either popcorn it or I can ask somebody to start. So whoever wants to go first, go ahead.
I'll go ahead and start.
Awesome. Go for it.
Thank you. So hello, everyone. My name is Normandy Gamboa, and currently I'm a project manager at a tech company in Emeryville called Premium. And I worked in the HR/L&D field within sales. So it's very specific to sales. But prior to that, I was a social worker for Solano County for 6 years. So I have that background in social services slash Medi-Cal slash food stamps. I ended up doing that because my bachelor's was in psychology. And 2 years ago, I went back to school and got my graduate degree in organization development. So, I mean, the common thread here is human dynamics, human cognitive, human cognition and behavior. So those are my interests. But also, I'm a first generation immigrant and a first generation college grad. And those experiences shaped a lot of the decisions that I made as far as the career that I wanted to be in. And in a short time here, I'll be switching on over to social services for the state. So there's that common thread of being in the social services field. But that's me in a nutshell.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Normandy.
Thank you.
Who wants to go next?
All right, I guess I'll go next. Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Vince Mendoza. Let's see. So I graduated from San Jose State with a degree in English literature, focusing emphasis on creative writing. I did that because I wanted to go to law school. I've been kind of, after I graduated in 2017, I've been going back and forth on what I wanted to do. So finally I decided, actually I'm applying right now. I have a few apps in to some schools in San Francisco for public administration masters. So that's what I'm going to be going for. That's what I'm going to be doing. Adrian and I used to work together on some policy stuff back at De Anza when we went there. So that always resonated with me. So I decided to use the voice, use the privilege that I have as a man, as a all the privilege that I have for some people that don't necessarily have a voice, haven't found their own. So I want to do that. That's my end goal right now. Right now, I'm kind of doing something a little bit different. I'm a personal trainer. It kind of just fell into that. It's paying the bills, but that's my end goal right now. So public administration masters, and that's what I'm going to be focusing on for the next few years. So
yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Vince.
Yeah.
Mara, do you want to go next?
Sure. My name is Mara San Martino. Pronouns are she and her. So I am a licensed clinical social worker, like Adrian said. I actually graduated 10 years ago on Saturday. So it's
congratulations. That's huge.
I know. It's a whole decade with my master's. But I've actually been in the field of mental health since graduating from Davis in 2005. Go Aggies.
Davis.
I'm in private practice now, but I worked for the county as the Hispanic Outreach and Latino Access Coordinator for 5 years. My passion as a first-generation Nicaraguan American has always been Latinos, and being one of the few bilingual therapists in the county, it's always been my goal to educate and empower my community. So I appreciate Adrian and Zoila and Erica for reaching out, because it's always great to have like-minded people to discuss and to troubleshoot, because we're in a very difficult time right now.
Yeah. Definitely. Thank you so much, Mara, and your perspective here is super valuable. So we really appreciate you being here. So I kind of wanted to just dive into it, and I'm gonna start with the first question, and again, whoever wants to go first. So I really wanted for someone to kind of give your perspective on the issues that QTPOC folks face, being LGBTQ, being part of the LGBTQ community, and also being a person of color. And Mara, I mean, if you also want to pitch in, on the mental health side, go for it. So whoever wants to go first.
I mean, I can go first.
Yeah, go for it.
I think as a therapist, I've identified as an ally even before being a therapist, and for family and friends. So I think for me, being an ally has been very important to me, especially as a Latina, to be able to provide voice to those that are voiceless, especially as for our young adults. In particular, I have one case that kind of drives me all the time, because that dynamic of a young person, struggling with their identity, but also immigration status, and having family members not understanding all the intersectionality of maybe being undocumented, and also, you know, dealing with, how to have this conversation. So I think there's a lot that as a therapist, we try to do to help people understand, especially family members. And so, oh, sorry. Yeah, so I am there as an ally, and I'm there to support. So
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we really, definitely really appreciate that. Thank you, Mara. Normandy or Vince, is there, what do you all think about, the kind of that cross sectionality of having both being part of both communities? So
no, for sure, that intersectionality is so interesting because I'm living that, right? I'm a part of the LGBT community, but also I'm a person of color. On top of that, I'm a first generation immigrant and a non-native English speaker. So often I might sound like I'm from here or I grew up here, but there's still that language barrier that not a lot of people see. And a lot of struggles manifest within the field of work, or in the workplace, where I mentioned that I work in tech, and really you've heard a lot about the statistics that in tech there's hardly any people of color, and I actually got to see that firsthand, and it's been quite an interesting experience to be the only LGBT person of color in a team of 10, and then a broader team of 40, where there's not a whole lot of like gay people or people of color to begin with. So you get to see the privileges that people have from the perspective of language, the perspective of socioeconomic level, and just the general upbringing of having grown up in like a country that you've known all your life, right? As opposed to somebody who had to learn their way around to navigate a new country. But yeah, so from a micro level perspective, those are some of the things that I struggle with. And then also, I mean, there's definitely the macro level perspectives that definitely that a lot of people from our community are dealing with, right? And there's this good website on actually HRC. A lot of us are familiar with the Human Rights Campaign.org, and they do document a lot of the statistics, which like they specifically identified that 17% of LGBTQ people lack health coverage, and then that 1 in 5 LGBTQ people have not seen a doctor when they needed because they couldn't afford it. 37% of LGBT adults smoke every day compared to 27% of non-LGBT people. So all of these things are happening at a macro level, which also I believe these are things that we should be paying attention to as a part of the LGBT community and as a part of the ally community.
Yeah, no, and that's super important, right? You're not only talking about you're talking about LGBTQ folks, especially when it comes to the medical, right? When you have the specific medical questions, and a lot of folks don't have that coverage. So thank you, Vince. What do you think?
Yeah, no, they bring up great points, but like we still live in a pretty racist society. Like overall, we still live in a society that for the most part, for a majority part, like doesn't immigrants are stigmatized, or it's we still live in a place that is homophobic. People see that every day. So navigating this realm, being queer, but being a queer person of color, it just adds that much more weight onto shoulders of people that don't necessarily, because of their socioeconomic status, have access to these resources that are there, or that are there for the most part, but that don't necessarily have the know-how, so that it leads to people maybe drinking or taking drugs or taking other pathways to deal with these realities that we have in our society right now. So yeah, I mean, like luckily I grew up in a somewhat position of privilege. I was able to have resources available to me. But these are things that a lot of people are dealing with that, and we need to. There's still a lot of work to be done for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. No, definitely. And what I really want to talk about is family dynamics. And talking what Norman was talking about, the macro level, the micro level of how being a person of color, but also having to deal with cultural barriers, right? Yeah. So what are those cultural barriers, and maybe what stressors, what things, Vince talked about drugs and alcohol, right? A lot of LGBTQ folks have higher rates of substance abuse, and that's something we especially you're seeing it when it comes to the minority communities, So yeah, so what are other when it comes to family dynamics? Mara, you were talking about being an ally.
I think just again anecdotally, I think what I hear from a lot, especially I deal with a lot of moms, and so a lot of times it's kind of understanding how to navigate like gender roles and gender norms, and they themselves want to be an ally, but maybe are struggling even themselves within that dynamic in their own family. I'm sure all of us that are Latino have heard this phrase of el que dirán, of what will other people say, and I think that kind of is one of the biggest drivers of fear for our families. I mean, I know, at least from my experience as a Latina, it was ingrained very early on to be conscious of what other people will say, because that will shame or bring, things onto the family. And I think, again, from the perspective of an ally as an educator for family members, that's where I try to encourage parents, family members to really understand like how damaging that can be, right? Like how it can just dismantle everything that you've worked so hard for to have a close relationship. And so for me, I think when we talk about family, I mean, family is, different for everyone, but I think as a culture, Latinos, we still need to educate ourselves a little bit more. And interestingly enough, you might, it's Latinos born here, not necessarily maybe Latinos or people, say from my family in Nicaragua. They're very much more open-minded. It's very interesting as far as kind of going back to what Normandy was saying about assimilation and acculturation and how those things also impact once you're here. So yeah, definitely a lot to unpack.
Yeah. No, and that was one of the, and one of my other projects is doing a Proud Ally group, and one of the reasons why I started that project in the first place was because I was tabling, and the instant a family found out that I spoke Spanish, it was and I have a big rainbow flag in the back and everything, and instantly they just start asking me all these questions, and they start telling me my daughter or my niece or my nephew is going through this and that. I don't know what to do. The family is stressed. Their dad is stressed. I don't know what to do. Who should I go to? So it's so it was so it kind of like I was just like, wow, that the want and the need to change is there. It's just how. Especially when it comes to culture, right? And that's why that was one of my other projects, because it's especially it's just education, and how do we meet those cultural needs too, right? When educating, because every culture is different, So yeah, Erica, do you want to ask a question?
Sure. I want to ask. Among barriers that QTPOC community faces, what in particular are those barriers?
So I want to take a stab at this, because I really do agree with what Mara pointed out. She really zeroed in on that idea of shame and fear about what others might think. And that drives a lot of the mental health issues, that was like anecdotally and from friends that I know. that drives the that seems to be the reason why people wouldn't want to come out. It's especially coming from a Filipino background or community, religion is a huge part of the community, and there a lot of times family members, especially from the older generation, are afraid of what the repercussions are, like spiritually or religiously, but also what others might think who are coming from a similar religion or background, right? So also, in addition to that, there's still that culture and generational gap between the younger generation and the older generation. So I'm very fortunate that my parents and my sisters are very understanding, and they after I was outed by somebody else, by my mom's friend to my mom, I was very fortunate that my mom didn't find it to be a problem. However, my dad doesn't know, and I haven't told him, and unless he asks me, I wouldn't say anything. But if he does come to me and ask, I would tell him everything about everything that has been missing, right? And a huge aspect of why that kind of dynamics exists is because of the generational and cultural gap, and then religion. And yeah, so in a lot of ways, when you talk about generational and cultural gap, many of the people from the older generation still believe or buy into the idea of like a man being with a woman, and that even if somebody's gay, they should still be with the opposite sex regardless, right? So it's those things that that those ideologies that were so deeply set in the mindsets, right? So, and then those are the things that we're trying to change, and that's why I really, in trying to maintain the peace, like I haven't come out to my dad, but if he does ask, I'm very willing to share that. But it's sort of like navigating that fine balance between keeping that relationship and also like having or maintaining your sanity.
And what I mean, and that's huge, right? That's a huge. Is that a huge stressor on you? What are kind of like what? How do you feel about that?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's a huge stressor, but as the years went by, I've been able to cope, especially with the support of my mom and my sisters. Right? They're very supportive, and they know better. They understand the cultural gap that exists and the generational gap that exists, and why my dad might not be as understanding about that situation. And let me tell you, he's all I'm pretty sure he's seen the tendencies, right? They're there. But in my conversations with him, again, there's this idea of regardless of whether or not you're gay, there's the opposite sex. Like, that's how the world works in their mindset. So instead of arguing with him, I maintain that peace. And again, if he's willing to ask about who I am, I would willingly tell him about everything, including the fact that I live with my husband.
Yeah.
We actually have I'm sorry, Adrian. We have a question from a viewer on YouTube that asks, how do you start that conversation? So say your dad does approach you or any other family member or someone that you're close with. How do you start that conversation about coming out?
I guess I'll go for this one. So with my family, it was kind of a strange dynamic. So like I'm fourth generation Chicano, and we hold on to a lot of traditions that I see new arrivals also hold on to. So I had a lot of apprehension coming out in my family, especially because they very much drilled into me, be a man, this very like don't be effeminate, like a lot of things I still struggle with like today, like these are things that were ingrained in me since I was a kid. But my grandfather is like the head of my family, and he's like the pillar of acceptance. So I guess in terms of to answer the question, you know, it was one of the hardest things I had to do. Like I was ready to leave that conversation, like cast out of my family. You know, that was something else we started to do, but in my heart and in my inside, I knew I had to tell them, or else I wasn't going to be true to myself. Now, you know, everybody has a different situation. Like, if you're going to face, you know, some kind of violence or something like that, you know, this is something you need to think about. But, you know, I knew nothing like that would happen to me. So, you know, but I thought my heart was going to explode out of my chest. Like, this is something that, holy crap. But I did it. I swallowed it. I told him, and he surprised me. My grandpa's a big old military Chicano guy. You know, he's very quiet, very stern. And he said, he brought up, he was in the Korean War. He's like, oh, you know, he told me a lot of the men that I would have fought and died with were Jotos, Latino or Spanish for gay. And he's like, and we would have died together, and that would have been okay because they were good people. And, you know, there's a lot of good gay people out there. And that really surprised me because I was just not expecting the conversation to go that way. So, you know, it's, you know, it was one of the hardest, but one of the like most, like, it got so much pressure off my shoulders. You know, I felt so much better after that. But, you know, I guess to answer the question again, it's just, it's, you know, it's going to be hard, especially if you grow up with these things that I grew up with, you know, be a man, don't show emotion, you know, like, and you're not sure how it's going to end up. But, you know, if you can, and if you are able to, yeah, like, just, you know, it's going to be hard, but swallow it and give it a shot, you know?
Yeah.
And how, and Vince, how is it now navigating that? Is it still, is it strange for you? Is it secondhand for you? Like going to family events?
Yeah, no, we have a great relationship, you know, like they, my dad, you know, loves my friend that I bring around. The grandparents call my friend, so they love, yeah, they love him, and it's just like, but, you know, we still have like faint, you know, we still have like our kind of tradition that we like, you know, they're, you know, men are supposed to be like this, women are supposed to be like, so there's like, we still have these roles that we kind of play. So, you know, but for the most part, like, I am a very appreciative of our relationship because it's we have a great one, you know, like, and you know, we're doing okay. So right now it's ideal for me. So yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Erica, do you have any questions? I think there was there was another question on YouTube. Okay, cool. So I wanted to move going towards, you know, this whole the mental health aspect, and now, you know, a lot of folks are in close quarters with their family, right? So I mean, what are some maybe some things that may add to that, those stressors, maybe, and maybe ways to avoid it, you know, being at home. I mean, being at home already with anybody for stuck, you know, quarantines already might be a little bit stressful, you know. How does being QTPOC and maybe having family and having to navigate that, like, how does it, like, how does it impact folks more? How would it impact folks more, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, families are gonna fight. Like, I fight with, you know, mine a lot. But you know, yeah, that would be like super unnerving if you're not out and you're like stuck with your parents. You're not able to go out and get that relief that you would need. You know, that in-person contact you would need from being with friends. So yeah, I don't know. I would imagine it would be a little more. It would be a little harder. You know, like just being stuck in with the family. If you're not out, if you are, you know, then yeah. But I've been exercising a lot too. This has been quite an interesting quarantine, but I've been exercising a lot. That's for me. That's my emotional outlet. Like, that's how I relieve stress. Is I just go crazy out there. So I mean, if you're stuck inside and you're going crazy, you can still go outside and exercise. You can go for a run. So I would recommend doing that. It's a great stress reliever.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, and to add to that, I mean, this kind of environment we're in definitely adds an extra layer of stress to, you know, gay people, LGBT from the, people from the LGBT community. And in a lot of ways, I do acknowledge my privilege in that I do live on my own, but not everybody is as fortunate, especially for the gay youth who might have run away to begin with, and in a lot of ways they have no place to come home to. Or if they, if they were able to come back home, there's definitely that tension that they have to deal with, as far as dealing with parents who might not agree with how they are and who they are. So yeah, that's definitely rough on a lot of people from our community.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, go ahead, Mara.
Go, Mara.
It's okay. I was going to say, I was going to echo what Vince and Normandy have said. And as a therapist, I think, obviously we're not doing in-person sessions, and something, Vince, you said, the human connection, that's something I try, because I'm a volunteer for a great organization called Immigrant Rising that provides free mental health services for youth. And a lot of the youth that have been requesting therapy are LGBTQ youth and, persons of color. And in doing, just brief interviews over the phone, a lot of what they're asking for is someone who's an ally who can understand, because they don't have privacy in their home, right? Whether they're out or not, the reality is that as youth, there's already a limited amount of privacy that you have. And so it's being able to navigate that, even as adults, right? Like, I have kids in the other room, and I'm like, oh my gosh, but the reality is, as a youth, you don't have that autonomy to just be able to sometimes run outside, right? Because, again, you're a youth, you have to ask for permission, you have to do this, you have to do all these other things. And so as a therapist, what I struggle with is to really find things that are going to be impactful in, maybe a 9x9 room, and trying to remind people that they are resilient in a time when, we're feeling like we can't even breathe, So that is something I think that all of us have to consider, whether we're, fortunate enough or not. There is a lot that's impacting all of us, in different ways.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Definitely.
Mara.
Thank you.
Speaking of youth, we do have another question from a viewer. So this is for Mara. How is confidentiality handled from a clinician role when elementary school students disclose gender preference during a counseling session? And do you disclose this to the parents?
No. So that's the simple answer: is confidentiality is confidentiality, whether you're a 5-year-old or a 65-year-old. Unless you give me, as your therapist, permission to share that information, I'm not allowed to disclose anything. Unless there's danger, right? As we know, suicidal or homicidal or abuse. And I think that's very important for anyone to hear, is that, especially right now, as we're doing video conferencing,
Right.
That's been a big issue. Is like, so I've shared with people, go on a walk, go in your car, put loud music, things that you feel comfortable with, so that you can talk to me, put earphones on. But as far as confidentiality legally, and here's the sticky part of that question, is it's about elementary school children. And, schools do have their own confidentiality rules, whereas someone like myself in private practice have different confidentiality rules. So I would say, ask that question to your therapist. Be very upfront with them, because therapy is 90% relationship. You have to have confidence in who's on the other side of that couch for you to be able to disclose something so personal and so intimate. So hopefully that answered the question.
Thank you, Mara.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. So I kind of wanted to backtrack a little bit and get more in depth when it comes to talking about culture and family. We talked a little bit about faith, and we talked about how important that is to culture. How what are some ways to navigate that? So what are some are, you're talking to somebody and, they're, let's say, Christian, and, how do you navigate yourself through their, another person's, say, a family's beliefs? And or how have y'all done that before, if that's, if you have had to encounter it? Who's that?
Well,
School's out.
I know.
Sorry, that was me.
No, you're good. So when it comes to, maybe going to church, or whatever faith you follow, how have you, or internally how have you dealt with it? If you are religious, I grew up. I went to Catholic school. I went to Catholic high school, and that took a lot of deconstruction afterwards. So how have you all navigated that? Whoever wants to go and
No, yeah. I mean, and I'm going to approach the question from the perspective of spirituality, right? I also grew up in a Catholic family. I went to, I still go to Catholic. I attend masses, and I used to be an altar boy, and I had to reconcile being gay with being spiritual, right? And as I learn more about myself, as I learn more about spirituality, it's really not about the religion that you're a part of. It's about how you're going as a person, and whoever supreme being you might believe in, or the universe, or whatever. To me, it's a matter of really trying to be a good person, right? Regardless of what denomination or religion you might believe in. And also, I still pray. I would pray the rosary. I still do those. I take the good out of the religion that I learned from, all the good things from it. And as far as all the negative things that the religious leaders might say, that's when I choose to follow spirituality and really just trying to be a good person, if that makes sense. It's all about taking the good and from this one side, and taking the good from like what you've learned as you navigate the world, and as you expand your understanding of the world and spirituality to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And at what point did that growing up Catholic turn into spirituality, and what was that process like?
You know what? That's a really good question, because I had this conversation with my then partner and my now husband. What's spirituality like for gay people? I've actually at some point I asked him, like, hey, do you still pray? And because I know I still pray, and he said he does, but it would be nice to be with somebody. It's nice to be with somebody who also has faith, and somebody who can make you believe that there's that supreme being, that there's good out there. And I think it's really just something that you navigate. And I think you don't have to have somebody special to really figure out spirituality. Part of that is self-awareness. Part of that is, being in this journey of growth. And regardless of what age you're in, it's something that a lot of people, stumble upon as they, expand their understanding of the world in general. So, yeah. I mean, to me, that happened when I met my partner, asking about like, oh, hey, so what's, where are we going to be? Like, what's our faith like?
Mm-hmm.
And I had to reconcile being a Catholic and being with another man.
Yeah.
And that was when I turned 21, and I'm still journeying through it to this day. So.
I feel like definitely, like, spirituality is always, right? It's a life. It's going out throughout your life, and it's constantly evolving. And maybe this is a question for Mara. How important when you look at a lot of Latinos, are very religious. How important is that to them, and how do you navigate that with your clients, especially being being LGBTQ?
I think that, again, working with mainly moms, right? And I think moms can be the spiritual religious pillar of most Latino families. I know my grandma was mine. I, to be honest, in that question, Adrian, I do a lot of self-disclosure. I'm kind of like Normandy. I call myself a cafeteria Catholic. I kind of pick and choose what I need from my faith. And I also share, I mean, this isn't anywhere near, this identity, but, if I say, if I was born out of wedlock, then, and if God can't love me, then, what makes, what difference is it for me? I'm a great person. I'm a thriving person, and I'm here to help. And so I think I use that a lot because it kind of shocks people, right? And I also have tattoos, and I'm also, like very progressive and liberal, and, and I speak Spanish. And I don't fit. I don't fit these molds, right? And so, when it comes to religion, I really do. I respect how people view their religion, but I also use the number one commandment. Love your neighbor as I love you. And so, I think for a lot of our families, again, religion is ingrained in our culture. There's sometimes they're not able to separate, and so again, the little self-disclosure I provide allows them to see, oh, it's not this or that. You can have and right? With youth, a lot of times it's like, I don't want to go to mass. Great, don't go to mass. That's part of your development. You're supposed to be rebelling. You're supposed to be finding your identity. How do we have that conversation though? And it's the tools of having conversation versus kind of going to this extreme of all or nothing. So that's what I do in my private practice. That's the advantage of having a private practice. Actually, it's being able to meet the client where they're at versus, and I'm sure Normandy can attest to this, kind of being in government boxes and having to do government things. So I encourage people to find the right therapist, the right ally. We're not all the same. So,
yeah.
Awesome, thank you. Vince, do you have a spiritual journey that you want to share with us?
I'm on the opposite end of Normandy and Mara. So I did actually, I did grow up Catholic. I used to pray a lot with my grandmother, and it was a thing. But when I started to accept or find out more about myself and start to accept my homosexuality, I viewed religion and spirituality as like a hindrance of that. Like it hindered my ability to be who I wanted, because I was finding out more, and there was a lot of pushback from religious folks. So I consider myself now a fallen Catholic. So I'm an atheist. I don't believe, but like Normandy said, I don't know why we're here or how long we're here, what the reason is, but we all need to be a good person to each other. So that, I guess, maybe that's one thing I took away from my spirituality or my Catholicism. But it pushed me, I didn't want anything to do with that. And I remember at one point I almost lost one of my best friends because she was a born again Christian, and like this around the same time when I told my grandfather, I told her, I was like, hey, look, I'm going to be with a man one day. This is who I am. You either need to accept me or we need to part ways. And that was hard because I was one of my best friends since I was really young, but I needed that acceptance from her. So we didn't talk for like 6 months, and then we picked it up, and now she's, like my sister, and I've been going through some family stuff recently, and she's been like a really, really strong person for me. And they have their religion, and they still love and do all that, but we're great together. So yeah, I took the opposite end in that I kind of pushed away from it, but I still some people need it. Some people fall back to that, and that's their emotional support that they need. I get emotional support from my family, and I love them very much. So that's to each his own, but that's me.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, everybody has their different journey. And and another project that I'm working on is Pride and Faith, where I'm working with affirming religious organizations, and and that's something that I wasn't 100% informed in, and there's tons of different. There's the Episcopal Church. There are a few churches in Vallejo, like in Vallejo, and also in Vacaville. There's one in Fairfield. Like they're all over, and there's that stigma going both ways, where you're getting kind of this like stigma from one side, where it's if you're religion, you hate anybody that's gay or trans, where as in and you get the other side where they're like, no, we're not like that. There are places that are accepting. So
I love that. Like when I see inclusiveness in churches, they're like, come everyone. Like that's amazing. Like that's the way it should. I mean, this is my opinion. That's the way it should be. But I love that inclusiveness in churches, that they say come everyone. Not, doesn't matter who you are or where you're from. Just come and celebrate with us.
Definitely. No. And there's an Episcopal church, St. Paul's in Benicia, that flies, the pride flag year round. So it's really a cool thing. Erica, I've been like taking over. Erica, did you have any questions?
Actually, another question. So we're going to jump back to the YouTube questions from a viewer. The viewer says, I'm a teenager looking for safe virtual events to participate in. Any suggestions what to look for or stay away from when it comes to safety? So, a teenager. There's must be a lot of virtual things right now, especially, right?
Well, this is one of them, our QChat series.
Well, this is one.
I was going to say the SolanoPrideCenter.org.
Yeah, yes. Well, we have a lot of stuff going on. For youth, we have a couple of youth groups. One on Friday, every first and third Friday, and then we also have I think the Asterisk group meeting on Wednesdays. But we're definitely look us up. We're on Facebook. But so I mean, we can fall into what are y'all? We can go back to the quarantine question. What are y'all doing to keep yourself busy? Like, is there anything, especially when it comes to that social aspect? What are you doing to cope with that? Vince said fitness, but I'm talking more of a social aspect.
So one of the things I do, because I graduated in May of last year, I've been keeping in touch with my graduate cohort people. Not just because I want to continue the networking with them, but also, I've grown to know them, and I want to keep that social connection. So yeah, just doing your happy hour Zoom calls. I've done a lot of those. Also, just doing FaceTime with family members. We can't be physically with them, but we have technology that would allow us to be social with the people that matter to us. So that's definitely one thing that I've been doing, is keeping in touch with people. And I believe I've talked to more people now than I ever have prior to COVID. More willing to be connected, because hey, like prior to COVID, a Zoom call every 2 weeks would have been so cheesy. But now I'm learning ways to really be social with each other in this kind of environment. So yeah, in addition to cooking, that's what I'm doing. Cooking.
Yeah. Oh, that's also really good too. I've been doing a lot of cooking too. And yeah, my family from Bolivia just destroys my Facebook. They have like a Facebook messaging thing. Apparently, they discovered it, and every other day they're calling me, and it's too much. But yeah, no, that's a great way, right? Talking to family, I think is super important. Keeping in touch, and And how about so we're social. How about with friends? Have you been doing all that with friends? Yeah.
Yep. Yep. For
There's
sure.
there's like a Zoom. I forget my friend. I don't have it right now, but we can play like live video games on Zoom. So we'll have like drawing competitions. I don't know what it's called, but I'm sure if you Google it, you can find it. But like we'll have like we'll draw something and then someone will try and guess what it is. So there's a lot of really cool features on the video chats that you could do with friends that'll help pass the time. So yeah, I can't remember the name, but it's super fun, and I'm a terrible drawer, so it's not very good, but yeah, so that's also too.
Well, that's a good idea too. That's right now we're working with seniors and then trying to keep them entertained, but definitely that's something. They love games, so that's what we're looking into. So I'll have to grab that from you later. How about you, Amara? Do you have any suggestions for anything that folks do want to try to,
So I guess I'm on the other extreme where I actually am seeking more alone time. Again, being a therapist,
That's true.
giving, and this is for anyone actually, like if you're a giver, right? And being in this situation that none of us have ever gone through, I think sometimes people will seek you out, right? If you're their best friend, if you're a good listener. So being mindful of your own mental health and your own emotional health is important. So I limit my Zooms to, one family member per week. And so, it's kind of like, unless the house is burning down. I also have 2 children, so I have to be mindful of how engaged I am with my children, especially with technology. But something about the question, Erica, was about safety. And I think as youth, and with any youth, just being mindful of who you're reaching out to, and vetting those sources, whether it's, Zoom or TikTok or, Snapchat. And what Vince was talking about is called House Party, which my cousin's always.
Oh, okay. House Party. I have to write that down.
Even the name, right? House Party. But again, connection is great, but also being mindful of your own connection and making sure you're checking in with yourself that you're doing well, whether it's exercising or, doing the spiritual part or just, making sure you're getting enough sleep, you're drinking enough water. I mean, you probably heard me saying you drink water. Eating, I had someone tell me, oh, I stopped eating because I've just been kind of like on TikTok and Snapchat. And I'm like, we still kind of need to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Yeah, because they were so engaged, like they were just kind of mindlessly doing things, So just checking in with yourself is important. So I'm on the other end. I'm kind of like, after 5 o'clock, I'm like, good.
You're done.
All right. So, we're all at home. What are some new things that you've, picked up? Normandy said he's cooking. I don't know if you normally cook or if that's a new thing that you're doing. Vince, working out, that's something probably ingrained in you prior to quarantine. But what's something new that you've picked up, or something that you've done, years ago that you just picked up again?
Yeah, good question, Erica. It would be the latter for me, something that I was doing before that I stopped doing, and now I'm rediscovering it. So I'm getting back into the habit of writing and journaling. I bought a lot of books on how to write novels and a memoir. So that's one thing that I'm doing right now is really forcing myself to follow a very prescribed method to like write down your ideas. So that's one thing that I'm doing, but also I'm learning how to create podcasts. I'm in the process of starting one with a friend from grad school. So, I think this COVID environment has given a lot of us the time to really, go back to the things that we wanted to do to begin with, our younger selves and, what our aspirations were. And I think that's sort of the path that I'm following right now is, hey, moving forward, what do I want to do and where do I want to be in? Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
That's awesome. That's a good way to document like this time.
Yeah,
right?
especially podcasts. What
Yeah, that's
subjects?
cool.
What subjects are you going to have on your podcast?
Off the top of my head, really, because I did share earlier that I experienced firsthand what it's like to be a gay person of color in tech, where there's hardly any person of color.
Mhm.
So it'll be really more on those experiences. What it's like to be a person of color in a tech company where you don't get to have people who could support you from a standpoint where they really understand your lived experiences, and like some stuff on how you could succeed in that kind of environment. So those are some of the general ideas anyway. But it's very cursory right now, and it's left to be discovered. With whatever is in there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
How about you, Vince? What are some new cool things that you've been doing?
So two things. The constructive thing I've been doing is, so I'm sure some of you guys have heard about this, but before all this, I was training to do AIDS life cycle. It's a 545-mile ride from San Francisco to LA on the bike. So I was training to do that, and then it got canceled. So I still keep up with the training rides and try and stay active as I can. So that's that program was to raise money for AIDS and HIV services and education. There's a lot of people who can afford things like PrEP or knowledge about AIDS and HIV. There's a lot of people that can't. So anyway, I kept that alive. I'm still doing it. I'm still posting about it. The thing that I'm not too proud of is I picked up my video game habit again. So like I'm playing Animal Crossing, but my family's playing it too. So like that's kind of like our thing. Like my niece is playing it, so like we all get together. We have a special big chat. So yeah, I've been playing a lot of Animal Crossing video games. I played a lot of video games. So yeah, two things. One good, one not so good, but.
Go for it. What were we gonna say, Mara?
I feel like I'm the anomaly. I'm like, nada. I haven't done nothing.
No, you get.
But I think, I guess this is where my therapist hat comes in, is that I do want to kind of stress kind of the importance of, having this desire to be productive. Some of us aren't able to do that. Some of us still have this mental load of, again, I'm coming from the experience of being a Latina therapist, working with mainly Latinos, mainly undocumented Latinos. And some of those do identify as LGBTQ. So a lot of that too, where am I going to get food on the table? How am I going to feed my kids? That's a lot of stuff too that we in this chat are privileged to be able to at least think about and maybe, so I'm just throwing that out there. One thing is baking. I do have a 3-year-old daughter, and like for her, every Friday it's Experiment Friday. So we do an experiment, either science or baking related. But guys, have heard of TikTok, but that's actually a platform I've been trying to get more involved in, just to continue my education as a Latina, to destigmatize mental health within the Latino community and kind of get that going. And my husband has also gotten onto it. He loves doing videos with my children, so I'm his camera person. But less is more actually for me right now.
Mara, thank you for bringing that up. The idea of always wanting to be productive, and like really finding time to really like let go of that, and just relax a little. And because I know for me, I struggle with that. I do feel guilty when I'm not doing anything. When I'm watching TV, I think to myself, oh, I could be doing something else. But thank you for bringing that up, because it's really important, especially one of the sources of stress. Talk about being restricted to your home and just wanting to be productive all the time. That's a big source of stress. So thank you for reminding us to be kind to ourselves.
Yeah. Well, and that's definitely, and that was one thing when this whole thing went down. It was routine. I had a routine down, and it just completely obstructed it. And so, trying to figure out a new routine and adapt to the situation, I think is super important. And and eating is one of them, right? My eating, my schedule was just thrown off. I would, cook my meals in the beginning of the week, and then there was no reason. I mean, now I get fresh meals, but I mean, in the beginning, I didn't know what to eat. I was confused. But yeah, no, definitely. Thank you so much. And so I kind of just maybe wanted, it's been an hour, so maybe we can start wrapping it up. I was wondering, if we can have some closing thoughts on, what do you have to say for someone maybe that is struggling with their identity, that's a person of color, that's trying to struggling with their sexuality, faith, whatnot. What would you all say to them if we could just go around and someone and everybody could share?
I guess one thing I would say is to not give up. It'll get hard, and again, my situation was, I heard a lot of horror stories from my friends coming out, but reach out, don't give up, your life is meaningful no matter who or where you're from. So you may not realize that now, but it's the truth. So my advice would just be to keep on going, keep on, if you get knocked down, get back up, and it's going to be hard, but it'll be worth it. So I guess that would be my parting thought for you. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Vince. I think that's fantastic. That's good.
That's awesome, Vince. And I want to add to that, really, in addition to reaching out, find your community, right? Reach out to SolanoPrideCenter.org. Reach out to the counties. There's great programs for the county for mental health. And really realizing that reaching out doesn't mean you're weak. It's realizing that a professional can really help us. Talk therapy works. And I go through that myself, and there shouldn't be any stigma in that. Let's reach out for help, because that's really important. Also, in addition to finding your community, continuing your self-discovery journey, because that it helps you to continue and move along, and not seeing the situation as the stop to everything. It's finding hope in the journey, right? Go through that journey, find hope, and then reach out to your community.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was good.
Yeah, I'm just going to echo what both Vince and Normandy said about, keep going and finding community. And as an ally, I think my message is more towards allies of being more open with your identity as an ally. I think that's something, just for me, that was a struggle sometimes, to say that I was an ally because I was Latina. And then once it kind of, was out there, the reward of being an ally and, educating family members or supporting someone, I think, is important. So finding your community, and it could be someone, like you said, in therapy, it could be someone, that you haven't thought of. But also, again, as an ally, just being comfortable with that and putting it out there, I think, is important as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciate it. I think this was beautiful, and I loved all your perspectives. I wanted to do a few plugs before this ended. The Asterisk group, which is a trans and non-binary and allies group, which is that youth group I was talking about, actually meets on Thursdays from 3 to 5. And then this Friday, we have a virtual cocktail party, which is at 5:30. And then we also have a Come Dine with Pride, which is on Saturday from 6 to 7:30. And then one quick thing I wanted to mention was the Queer Women of Color Film Festival, which is going to be in mid-June. And that's going to be all online. So Thank you so much for everybody for tuning in. Thank you, Mara. Thank you, Normandy. Thank you, Vince. Thank you so much for being here. Erica, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you all later. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, guys.